Hey guys, how's it going? Back with another video. Today I'm going to do a Lotus macro overview. I actually recorded this video already, but then for the second time this week, I looked down and I realized that my mic was muted this whole time, so I uploaded it with no sound or no mic volume. So yeah, every single video I'm going to look down at my mic. I'm going to make sure there's no red light blinking, and then I'm going to start the video. So yeah. Anyways, here we are. It's like one of the worst pains. It's like stubbing your toe, or you know, I don't want to make jokes about getting played or anything like that, but it hurts. It hurts. It hurts making a video like that. You're just yapping, talking to yourself, and then you look down and it's all for nothing. But at least I got a trial run, right? So, anyways, yeah, I'm gonna follow the same format as the other videos. Oh, before I get started, I've seen a couple comments, suggestions about potentially starting a Discord server. I don't know if that's something that you guys are interested in. I'm definitely down to start something like that, start a little community Discord where you guys can talk to each other and share ideas. Potentially I'll start offering more private coaching if that's something that people are interested in. I know I've got a couple of students through YouTube just making these videos. So if you guys are interested in stuff like that, definitely let me know in the comments, and I will work towards setting up a Discord for all of us to kind of interact in. You know what I mean? But yeah, just let me know if that's something you guys are interested in, and yeah, I'll work on getting that set up. But anyways, let's get to the video. So I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter than the others. It is kind of a complex map. It's the only 3 bomb site map in the pool left, but there's a lot of similarities that you can draw to a map like Haven, right? Haven was a map that had 3 bomb sites. There was a lot of emphasis on deep lines on the extremities, the same way that there is on this map, okay? Now, this map is even more T-sided than Haven. Any 3-sided bomb site map is going to be T-sided, okay? And I think that just goes without saying. Logically, there's less people on defense to cover each of the sites, meaning that it's a lot easier to kind of manipulate rotations, potentially fake a site, and then go to a site that has less people on it, right? So the other thing that makes this map way more T-sided than Haven is the access to the orbs is a lot easier in a sense, right? Like the sea orb on Haven was relatively easy, but actually, you know what? I guess now that I think about it, it's actually very, very similar. What am I saying, right? Getting Sea Orb on attack is super easy, the same way that it was on Haven, and then on A, the A Orb is super easy, right? There's still always a threat if teams go out fast on you that you won't be able to grab it, but never mind. Scratch that whole idea. Let's just get into the video and do the same. I'm going to follow the same format that we've done the last couple of videos. It used to be more T-sided because there was a 3rd orb here, but they removed it, right? So there's boom, boom, boom. But now they've removed this one, which I think is a good change, and they've changed the angles a little bit. So it is a little bit more CT-sided than it was in the in the patch before this one. But let's get into kind of drawing out these choke points. And again, guys, the way that people are setting up on defense at a professional level, or even not even a professional level, but in team play, like how the meta is defined, is something as similar as this, right? The teams might not do this single exercise, but I think it's super important. When new maps come out, you determine where the chokes are, and then determine how many chokes lead to multiple pathways. Or when I describe a pathway, just think of an option in where teams can go, right? How many options do they have in the round, right? So let's just go ahead and draw all of these. Here, 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 here. Okay, we can get rid of this. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about all of these. So there's 2 chokes on here that I don't really want to count, even 3 potentially. I mean, I'll count them, but they won't have as much significance really. Actually 2, we'll just talk about these 2. So the door, both of these doors, the reason why I'm giving them less significance is not because they're not important. It's just because you will always have information that somebody is going through them because they have to open them. So you get the audio cue, right? So while they can be very, very important because they allow you to pivot from bomb site to bomb site or create an A split, right? Turning the ace bomb site into 2 chokes instead of 1, you're always going to get some type of information that they're being opened, meaning that you don't always need to dedicate a body to holding this choke, right? Because it's holding itself, right? Same thing on B. You don't need to dedicate anybody on, B looking this way because the door opens itself, right? So if we just look at these chokes here, again, I'm going to draw this and this and this. This is the choke that leads to 1, 2, 3, 4 different options for the attacking side, right? And really 3.5 because nobody's really pushing it. Sometimes teams do, but you won't do it with numbers, right? It'll be somebody poking deep for a kill or something like that, or a lurker going this way. But nonetheless, this is going to be the main point of contention for me on the map. A main, okay? Shutting down A main on defense, and when I find a main point of contention, that is going to be the emphasis for me on defense. That's going to be the emphasis for me on attack. It doesn't mean that I'm dealing with it at the start of every round, but it does mean that there is a lot of value being held in controlling this area, okay? Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper and kind of explain why that is, okay? Besides, what I already mentioned about it getting options to different pathways. You have the option, if you get a main control, you potentially get the orb, you can pivot A to B, you can split A by going through the door. You can push people back into sight where they don't get a lot of information, where they have to play nested with 2 players and they don't really know how many people are out here anymore, right? Because a lot of the times the only info utility that you have with the standard comps is a sky flash, and a sky flash is not going to tell you how many numbers are in a certain area, right? So it's super easy for, you could have 4 people here, and when the sky flash pings, it's still going to say blinded. You could have 4 people over here and 1 person waiting to get hit by a sky flash over here, and it's still going to say blinded. So it doesn't really impact the way that you rotate. The thing that impacts the way that you rotate on this map is visually seeing how many util pieces are being thrown somewhere, or visually seeing how many agents are coming out of a certain area. Okay, that is the key. So with that, this idea of the deep lines, okay, the deep lines that I've talked about on all these maps, super, super important because you get early info. When you get early info on these deep lines, it allows you to rotate properly. And on a map with 3 bomb sites like this, it's really, really important that, 1, you don't over-rotate, and the key to not over-rotating is having some type of definite, actual truthful info, right? Not misguided information, but then also getting the information early enough so that you can rotate in time to help your teammates if they're nested on the site, if the enemy team is pushing it. Hopefully that makes sense. Really just fundamental logical stuff. But when we're talking about these lines, this is the line, and these are the 2 main lines here. Now there's other A lines. People jump spot this, or they do this. These are really the big lines on the map. Sure, you can count this if you want, but it's really not that big of a deal. There are teams that kind of jiggle this sometimes or play here, but it's really, those aren't really lines too much. I guess the B one would be like right here, but these are the main lines that I'm talking about, okay? Now, as defenders, it's super, super important to establish this A main control, okay? Because it allows you to set 1 person up here so that they can get information on this choke, and then you can pivot into having 2 people towards B, 1 person waterfall, and 1 person C, right? And now this 2 person, and sometimes you could even call it a 1-3-1, right? Where you have 3 in the middle here. Let me just erase this. So you have 3 in the middle, and it's not like they're lined up like, toy soldiers right here, just standing in a line. You got 1 guy here, 1 guy here, 1 guy here, and then 1 guy here, right? Anyways. So you want to get control of this A line, get this early info with the intention of, backing up and calling for rotations if you need them. But then also transitioning into more of a flood setup. A 1-3-1 would be a flood setup where you can kind of rotate to the pressure no matter where it is on the map and help your teammates, okay? And the way that you do that is you get a majority of your numbers towards the center of the map so that they can rotate freely however they need to, okay? That's really the name of the game on defense. And that's super, super standard. Let me talk about some basic utility that we'll see on the map here. And generally the comp that we see the most in pro play is going to be this, Sky. Sometimes you'll see some Fade Gecko. And then, what am I missing? Omen, okay? You'll see these 5 agents for the most part. And I'll just keep it simple at that. There's going to be some variants coming up, I think, after Madrid, where we might see some Cypher, a little bit more Chamber here sometimes, even though I think Killjoy is probably still the best. Cypher does have some value just naturally because it's hard with comps like this. If you don't have Sova, it's hard to always rely on the nade to break all the trips. And if you are using a nade to break trips, naturally you're getting value because the nade's not doing very much damage, right? So this is kind of what we're seeing here from a defensive setup. You're going to see your Viper player playing C as an anchor, your Killjoy player playing Waterfall as a support pivot between C and B, your Viper's playing here, your Viper's playing here to Molly and stall. Your Omen is usually in Baby Door or Hobbit. Some teams call it Secret. And then you have your Raze and your Sky here. One good thing that you can do super early is use your Sky Initiator utility, your Flash, and now it's not as strong because it's not rechargeable, but lots of teams will use this as a trigger to use more utility, okay? Now, you'll understand this as I explain this whole A fight, right? Teams are generally, early on in the half, shutting down A main with an Omen Flash, and then they'll go one way. Sky will flash Rubble here or here or here, and then Raze will dump a nade, okay? Now, you want to show this early on in the half so that you don't have to do it every single round, because obviously the Omen Blind, the Raze nade, and even the Sky Flash now are all valuable pieces of utility. So if you can save them, you should, right? But you need to assert dominance, right? Establish the fact that teams need to respect this early util so they don't just speed out A on you quick, right? Because if teams get out A on you quick, it can get really hard to hold, okay? Because, again, you get pushed into spots like this where you're nested. And once you're nested, you lose all info. Teams can go back C, they can go A, they can go A to B, they can do a million different things, right? So you lose the orb. Yeah, there's tons of things that go wrong if you lose control of A. So establishing A control early is super important, right? Now, once you get this line, you get somebody set up here, and then the Viper can pop the wall if this A person gets pressured, if they get pushed off, and then they fall back. At the very least, this person's job is to get info, but also bait out some utility. You want to show yourself, because when you show yourself, teams have to respect the fact that you might be there. And when they respect you, they will util dump you, okay? So this person gets here. Maybe it's Omen, maybe it's Raze. Typically, you'll see a lot of Omens here, especially if they have their blind, play towards Rubble, because they can blind, go for a kill, and then TP behind the Viper wall, and TP again to make it out, or run to Baby Door. Sky will usually pivot towards more of a rotational role. Sometimes they'll dog front B, sometimes they'll flash front B, they'll look for the lurker. And they'll kind of pivot and lean to the pressure with support flashes, and then Raze, depending on whether or not they have their nade or not, or they have their ult. If they have their ult, a lot of the times it's more of a rotational agent. If they have their nade, it's a lot of times they're a rotational agent, but they're also very strong at shutting down this A choke in the mid round, okay? So this is kind of how you want to be setting up on defense for the most part. Heavy emphasis on getting A main control early, but also having emphasis on trying to establish some type of info towards C. A lot of times you'll see your Viper player jump spot this, get hit by a Sky Flash, because when you get hit by a Sky Flash out by Mound, it forces teams to respect the fact that you might be here. And respect is the name of the game. When teams respect you might be somewhere, they util dump. So you're naturally going to win out util trade if you're getting hit by pieces of utility without the intention of fighting for them, if that makes sense. Okay, so early in the rounds, just to recap everything, we want to show that we're shutting down A, keep somebody on this line no matter what, understand that over towards C we have 4 mollies and that we're playing for stall, and that we don't necessarily need to over-rotate all the way over to C, which means this A player should never really leave the line until he absolutely needs to. And, sorry, he or she, Raze, and until they absolutely need to. And then you kind of just let this player's information dictate the way that you play around the map, okay? The other thing that I want to say about defense that's super important is understanding how much utility the enemy team, if you can get teams to use util on you on the sites without getting any kills, and you also pair that with the idea of not using a lot of util on defense, right? Like saving your nade, saving your Omen Blind. I'm not talking about like rounds like early on in the half. I'm talking about later on in the half after you condition this A main control. If you can do a good job of saving your Omen Blind, saving your nade, saving your Sky Dog for the retake, and you do a good job of baiting out utility from the enemy team, like on their execs, when teams go to do their C exec, you're making it seem like you're on site. You're getting them to use their Raze nade bend, getting them to use Viper Molly here, Killjoy Molly somewhere, and you actually just fall back to spawn and you play safely. At that point, you make the round a lot easier for yourself on a T-sided map, because if you can avoid teams getting value from their utility, regardless of whatever side it is, whatever map it is, whatever game it is, it doesn't even have to be Valorant. If you can, make sure that teams are not getting value out of their utility or getting kills off out of their utility, and you have more util for them later in the round, usually you're gonna have a good chance of winning the round if you have good timing, good togetherness, good trades, and yeah, you hit a couple shots. Really, it's that simple, right? This game is simpler than most people make it. Obviously, there's tons of different combinations of util that can be thrown at you, and that's what makes it hard. But having a good understanding of what's to come, what to be afraid of, and understanding how much util is being thrown in the round on the enemy team and how much remaining util you have left on your team can really set you up for success if you avoid the enemy team getting value from it, right? At the end of the day, we want to have as many people on the enemy's screen when they're taking a fight, and we want to have as few enemies on our screen when we're taking a fight. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it from the defensive side, okay? Now let's talk about attack. Now that, whatever's strong on defense, and obviously there's many different ways to play this. Lots of teams one way this instead of take mound control because they know that this C orb is super easy for attackers to take, and they just they want to deny that, right? So there's a lot of different ways to approach it. This is the most common way, and I think denying the A space and getting the A line will give you the most success. Definitely in ranked, but I think also in scrims for the most part, simply for the fact that you're denying, tons of different options for them, right? You're turning this map into basically a 3 choked map, sorry, as opposed to a 6 or a 7, okay? So that's it for defense. And now that we've talked about that, we also need to flip it around and talk about attack. Whatever's strong on defense means is likely strong on attack, right? So what does that mean? If we know that the defenders think that this area is super strong, then on attack, we should figure out ways to try to take this space, or at least have ways to understand when a team is fighting for this. What is our approach? What are we going to do? Can we figure out a goal to achieve if we know that the enemy team is fighting A? Yes, we can, and I'm going to show you guys how, okay? Now, if we just take this same comp, and again, a lot of you guys will already know this stuff, but it's important for me to talk about it, and just for everybody's sake, right? But anyways, so what you'll see a lot of the time is you'll see, first let me talk about the comp and the strength really quick on attack and why it makes sense on 3 bomb site maps. Even if we talk about Haven, this idea of deep lines on the extremities, what does Viper do? Viper is the best agent in the game at cutting sight lines with the Viper wall, right? Throughout the round, being able to put it up, put it down, the orb up, orb down. And Omen can also do the same thing with smokes. Omen and Viper are super strong together because one, Omen smokes are rechargeable, the Viper wall is rechargeable. You can create a lot of conditioning. In theory, you could even smoke like this and smoke like this. You could do 4 smokes at the start of the round, and then in 15 seconds, you could basically hit any of these bomb sites with only 1 smoke if you really wanted to. You know what I mean? And you have the ability to pop out of this, pop out of this, pop out of this. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of strength here, but really the strength of this comp is not to go quickly. It's to slow play the rounds. It's to bait out utility. It's to manipulate rotations. And that's why you see so many teams do this Viper wall towards A, right? If people are so focused on defense, on establishing the line and not just this line as well, jump spotting this, this Viper wall cuts all of those lines, right? The same way that this Viper orb would cut all of these lines as well, and people would use this B wall, right? It'll cut this jump spot. Now, you could still kind of be here looking at this, but this orb does puts a lot of pressure because people can get all the way up to here if they really, really want to. So, you see teams doing this combo of utility, although actually I think this is way stronger, in my opinion, using your orb for different use cases, because the orb is probably Viper's, I don't know if I want to say best piece, but it probably is the best piece of utility because you can pick it up and reuse it, and it has tons of different use cases and value, right? You can play post plant with it, you can play anti-retake with it, mullying, installing the choke, right? You can swoop peek with the Viper orb. You can use it as one ways. You can put it on bomb for post. You can use it to cut sight lines. You can smoke off turrets. You can smoke off alarm bots, whatever, right? You can do tons of things. So really, again, the strength of this comp is the ability to cut sight lines and slow play the rounds, okay? Now, again, you have to, if your whole identity on defense is to fight A main here, really what you have to do, what this Viper Wall does, is the Viper Wall allows you to get out to this spot, but it also forces you to have some type of support. So it forces you to have a second person here a lot of the time. Whereas the other, like if there was no Viper Wall and you just had deep vision on this choke, you wouldn't feel as pressured if you were playing like here with an Omen TP behind your own Viper Wall, right? Or you're just jump spawning here. You're not going to feel as pressured. But teams can literally walk up behind this wall and get into this corner, and they can flash out and they can run out this way, and they'll pinch you right here, and you'll just die. You'll just straight up die. So you need a second support agent with you a lot of the times. And if you can have, on attack, if you can force two people to play here, you can honestly spam C a lot of the time. Like, because the rotation time takes so long, it's really, really hard, okay? Now I want to talk about another really strong point, and really, really important part of the map, and like a macro thing that pretty much all teams should be doing, is always having one person in this A main area counting the pieces of utility that are being thrown towards a lobby to disallow them to come out of the A choke. A general rule of thumb is if you hear 3 pieces of utility, go the other way. Go the other way and figure out a way to achieve a goal somewhere else, okay? Now, the obvious goal is to start mound, grab the orb, break some Killjoy utility here, bait out a Viper Molly, tap the door, you know, re-clear front B, and then maybe break the alarm bot. Like, if you're able to do that all in the first 25 seconds of the round, that is a huge win for the attacking side. And honestly, it's pretty easy to pull it off if you know that the Raze is here and the Raze nades, you know the Omen is here and the Omen flashes, and you know the Skye is here and the Skye flashes here or flashes Rebel. If you know that, a lot of the times you can speed up C and you can figure out some way to get value out of it. Break some util, put some pressure, bait out, you know, break the alarm bot, break the turret, you know, same thing, and then go B. Once you do that, now you've recreated the gaps on the map. The Sentinel utility on this map is key. There's two things that cause teams from not over rotating on defense. One is deep lines, but 2 is also is Sentinel utility. And if you can establish the fact that you're denying the deep lines on A, but also you're able to break the Sentinel utility super, super quick in the round on attack, you open up a ton of options. And naturally, people are going to have to do one of two things. They're either going to have to aggressively push something because there's info starved and they need information where you could be holding for them and get free kills, or they're going to have to nest back into sites and gamble certain sites and play full retake. And when teams do that and you have a decent amount of you do a good job on attack of not using a ton of utility to actually get onto the site, and you understand, like you have a good understanding of whether or not teams are playing on or off, you can counter util them when they try to retake and you can win the round. And really that is why this map is so T-sided, okay? The other thing that I want to talk about, and it's kind of the flip side of that, is on attack. The second piece is if you're getting onto sites and the enemy team is not showing a lot of resistance in the choke, you need to do a good job of saving your util. But if you don't do a good job of saving your util and you use a lot of it, you need to understand that sitting on site and waiting for the other team to do one of their set retakes is not good enough. You need to be poking and prodding into spawn, into deep waterfall sometimes, try to get a pick and to fall back, you know, deep one-way smoke here, fight into spawn, you know, put a lot of pressure on these guys, because what it forces them to do is respect the fact, and this is a big thing that I'm going to be talking about in these macro videos, respect. If you can create a question mark that you are somewhere, you're forcing the enemy team to respect the fact that you might be there. And when teams respect that you might be somewhere, they have to use util to clear it, unless they gamble swing it dry, right? But we want to force people to make that decision. We don't want to just give them the space. Valorant is a big battle of space and denying info. And in post plant, so if you take C and you don't get any kills on site, I want my duelist to kind of like poke deep with a Sky Flash into spawn. I want a deep one-way Omen smoke this. I don't want to smoke here. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather just like go into the C hit with the intention of deep one-way smoking here. Let's fight deep spawn, right? Because the last thing that I want is I don't want Omen to come here. They have all of the C space, and then they come out waterfall and they rip their nade here, and they throw a Viper Molly here, and yeah, they just can like full retake on us. There's nowhere to play the bomb from outside of main, right? Now it's really hard to get this plant down unless you're dealing with this preemptively, right? Which is very possible, right? Like, you just go with the intention of smoking and fighting deep spawn, your player plants here, and then now guess what? You can kind of get off the site. You leave 1 to 2 people on, you get off and you play the bomb from rubble. Okay, same thing can be said on B. Playing spots like this, and this are not really that optimal in post plant because it's really easy to util them, right? By nature, maps that are T-sided kind of flip to retake, like defender retake favored because of the nature of the bomb sites. There's not a lot of space to hide on them. It's really easy to util dump them. And so for that reason, you need to get a little bit more proactive in post plant here, post plant here, post plant, even post plant in heaven here, sometimes into spawn, and hold on, you know, deep one-way smoke this and kind of be annoying, right? But honestly, the most important thing is to have this understanding of how much util you've spent in the round, because if you have util to counter util them in the retake, you don't need to do this. But if you don't have util and the enemy team still has a ton of their util, it makes a lot of sense to make the round scrappy. Don't let them get into one of their like Google Doc fully planned out retakes that they've done 100 times in practice. Make the round scrappy, make the round difficult for them. That's what we want to do as players, regardless of the map, the side, the agent. Make the game difficult for the opponent. That's how you win games. Okay. I think that's generally it. Honestly, generally it. Oh, I guess the last thing that I'll say is like slow playing the rounds. Well, I'll say 2 more things. Slow playing the rounds on attack, super important. Being able to have like a set rubble reclear, super important. If you have this idea that teams are generally trying to keep their player on the line here, right? We need to make sure that we have like a reclear, you know, molly for top rubble, or one at the bottom of rubble with a nade or something, right? And killjoy molly up top, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Something like this, something of this nature. But then also the other thing that I'll say is creating a lot of panic on this map makes a lot of sense. And what I mean by that is get people pushed deep, like get them to nest into their sites, right? Get them to nest into here, into here and into here. Because 1, they lose information, but 2, it allows you to create a lot of panic on the comms. They can't rotate properly. And another thing to add to the panic is open the door, open it, close it, open it, close it, break this door all the time, open and close this door all the time. You want to make them communicate as much as possible, because when the comms are flooded, teams do a really poor job of being on the same page. Make the rounds hectic. It's easy to make the rounds hectic if you get control of A, okay? And really that's the key to it all, okay? I'm sure there's things that I've missed, but I think that's a good starting point. Hopefully you guys learned something. Again, if you guys aren't, you know, subscribed, please hit the button. I really appreciate it. I'm putting out content, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 videos a week sometimes. So I'm really trying to make sure that I'm putting out content for you guys to consume at a high level. And then also the other thing too is just a reminder. I mean, this is just for me mainly. I just want to know if you guys are interested in maybe a Discord community where we can just chat about stuff, maybe do some watch party stuff in the future, even doing you know, potential private coaching could make a lot of sense. You know, if that's something that you guys are interested in. I know I've gotten a couple students from YouTube, and that's definitely something that I want to do. I want to give back and I want to help you guys. And yeah, we can talk about specifics and other stuff like that, but I'm just trying to gauge interest. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, okay, just like had a little panic because I looked down at my mic. I want to make sure it was not muted again. If that's something that you guys are interested in, please let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll work on getting that set up. Thanks again for your time. Thanks again for watching the video and all the love. Appreciate you guys. I will see you in the next one.